Hi, welcome to the Inviting Shift podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. This is the Midlife Woman's podcast for a confident and joyful journey. I'm your host, Christina Smith, and twice a week, I'll be bringing you topics that impact midlife women the most. I hear it from my clients. They have health concerns around perimenopause and menopause. We have mental and emotional challenges going on that I want to help you manage and work through. I want to talk about how we deepen our relationships and our friendships in midlife, and then what we do when we want more, how we get clear on that, and how we start moving forward confidently and joyfully, because that's what this journey is about. I want midlife women to come together, create a community to revolutionize how we see midlife. Tune in for this week's topic. Welcome back, shifters. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. And this might be one of my favorite episodes. I've just spent a whole weekend doing all kinds of passionate, fun things. And I know that it took me a really long time to get here because it was always about work or the things that needed to get done around the house. And I didn't really make creativity time for myself. And there's so much to talk about and unpack about this because I'm so excited to have Sharon Burton here. Sharon was on our summit, if you remember, the Midlife Mojo Summit, and she was talking about Yoga Nidra, which is one of her passions. However, today, one of her even bigger passions is to talk about creativity and how we get re-engaged with it as we get older and how we can re-engage with it if we haven't been friends in a while, right? So thank you, Sharon, so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk about this with you.
And I'm excited to be invited to share a little bit today. Thank you, Christina. I had a good time working with you and talking with you for the summit, and look forward to the summit next year. And hopefully the participants got a good idea of what Yoga Nidra was about and how that could work for their creativity or anything in life. So, but thank you for inviting me to talk about this topic today.
Yeah, and what I love about that is it seems like when I first thought about it, I was like, Yoga Nidra and creativity. A lot of us need to get to that deep space of calmness before we can actually, at least for me, I'm speaking for myself, is the Yoga Nidra actually really helped me because when I get through this anxious space during the day of doing things and checking off lists, it's so beautiful to just do that for 15 or 20 minutes. And then I feel like my body's reset and I can go back into creativity, which I think is just brilliant that you use it as a tool. But tell us who it is that you work with and what you do for them.
Well, I am a creativity coach. I'm a certified creativity coach, by the way. And I work with individuals who either want to reclaim, rediscover, or unblock their creative life. And this is mostly cultural creatives, folks that are artists, visual artists, writers, authors, poets, musicians, people that are in traditional creative fields. But it also does not exclude folks that are into creating podcasts or, gaming designers and people like that. If you're in a creative field or need to work through using your creative side as part of what you do, I'm your person to help you work through that. And I primarily work with people who are at midlife, and particularly folks that are dealing with empty nest syndrome, people that are getting ready to retire, getting ready for their second act, because we have a sense of freedom that we may not have had when we were younger. As well as people who had a lot of messaging when they were younger about pursuing a creative life. And a lot of us Gen Xers and above did get that. If we didn't grow up in a family of artists and creative types, we were kind of, shuffled off to doing more maybe
Productive thing.
right brain. Yeah. So well, and by well-meaning people, people
Mhm.
that wanted to see us thrive. And, you know, uh, a, a lot of us grew up at a time when being an artist wasn't as cool as it is now.
Mm.
We now embrace creative industries and creativity, and the creatives are the ones that are kind of leading the pack with a lot of things that we're dealing with right now, good and maybe not so good. But for the most part, this generation has really been encouraged to embrace their creativity, and knew nothing of some of the things that a lot of us had to go through to kind of discard our creativity and then try to regain it at a time
Mm.
that we're able to do that. So what I try to do is work with people to deal with things that might have blocked them in the past, and basically help give themselves permission to have a creative life, and know that it's never too late to do so.
Mm.
So I love what I do. I do workshops. I have a new book getting ready to come out, hopefully in a couple months, that will address this group, just to help inspire people. And, we're at a time where creativity is what we're going to need to move past a lot of the ills of society. But also creativity is leaning on our creative gifts can be a balm and a way to, escape the madness of life, or just do it for enjoyment. So that's what I'm about.
Yeah, and I love it you like escape the life, but it's such a
Mhm.
healthy escape, right? Because we're using our
Yes, it
brains,
is.
we're using our hands, we're, putting things together, figuring things out. At least that's how the process of my art usually goes,
Oh
is
yeah.
with like a lot of testing and trying without having like so when you talk about these creative people, I was never really an artsy person because I did not have good experiences in art classes when I was growing up. And I
Mhm.
feel like I was humiliated in half of them. So I never really did the art thing. I did poetry, I do gardening, I do those kinds of things. But after I went to a women's weekend, did all this kind of healing, I was like, I want to paint. I had this like passion to like, I want to go paint. So I bought all the supplies and the canvas and everything. And I sat there and I stared at it for about a year. Just stared at it, right? Like what am I going to do? And it was so stressful. I could have used you back then, but I had I had a friend that was a little bit older than me and she's like, "Christina, just put the damn paint on the canvas. This does not have to be a masterpiece. This is just fun. This is just you playing around. Just swirl the colors on there and have some fun." And that made it easier because for me, what I realized is I was putting this huge expectation on whatever this canvas was going to be as if, it was going to go hang in the Louvre or something. And so
Mhm.
it stopped me from moving forward. So I'm assuming it's those kind of blocks that you can really help people with.
Most definitely. And your experience is not atypical.
Mm.
Um, I was in a similar kind of thing. I did not go as far as to buy art supplies, but when I finished my graduate degree some years ago, I was in my early 30s at the time. I think I had just turned 30. And, at that time, when you're just turned 30, you really think you're getting old. Oh, God, I'm getting old. And you know how we were at that time. But anyway, so I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, and I had just got my first job out of graduate school. So, beginning to kind of make a little bit of money. And I would pass by the Atlanta School of Art, which is now part of the Savannah School of Art.
Hmm.
And something kept telling me, like, okay, now that you got your graduate level degree, so you're employable by the world standards that we grew up with.
Mm.
You need to enroll over there. and take some classes. And I was like, no way. I'm going to be this old woman at 30, old woman, and I'm going to be surrounded by a bunch of kids, and they're not, I'm thinking I'm an artist. I grew up doing art and did very well with it. I had more positive experiences with my art classes. There were some negative, but mostly a lot of it had nothing to do with my art. I was encouraged by my parents to create. So I didn't have a lot of the typical, somebody telling me that my stuff was crap. It was just, I was just told that if I was going to go to college, I couldn't major in art. So I majored in business and then got a graduate degree in public administration. So very different than art. But I did not realize how much I really wanted, or that the art thing was still a part of me, until I would pass by that school. And I was scared. I eventually started doing little things like I went on an art tour, a studio tour there. And it was kind of like telling the voice to shut up, like, okay, I did this. So I'm part of the art thing. And it was like, cool, but that's not the level you need to be at. And so it took me several years to actually go to classes and learn and relearn drawing and art and all that, and get to the point where I could display my work and all that. But it took a while. So, actually, I think you were probably faster than me, because it took like about 5 years 5 or 6 years before I got going. But at least you had those things. And actually, I really like that ideal that you did, by having the art in your home and looking at it every day. And I think when we talk about exploring our passions, when we want to try to do something new, maybe something that we haven't done it before, that we've always wanted to do, if it's something that you used to do and you haven't done in a while and you think you're rusty and it's too late to do it, doing something like putting a reminder in front of you that sort of triggers something in you, even if it takes a year, not putting a timeline on it, but at the same time saying to yourself, you're going to have to move past just staring at it. So the other piece that you talked about, by having supportive friends, people that support what you're about and what your passions are, that kind of give you that nudge, because I had the same thing myself as far as displaying my work. Because I was started to the point where I created, but then I wouldn't share it. And so,
I think I'm still
having
there.
supportive people is all. Yeah.
Right.
And I was looking at your work the other day when we chatted, and I was like, she is so good. I don't know why she's, because I was like, I'm thinking that you had found a good artist or something that you liked that just was collecting their work. And it's like, and then you just said it real casual. Oh yeah, I did that. And I'm like, that's so good. You realize how good you are. I mean, that piece in the back there is just awesome. It's cheery. It's fun, and you have a good use of color. You seem to have a good sense of color and how to use color. Not everybody can do that, so you shouldn't, count yourself out with that.
Yeah,
But that's a
I
whole
have
nother.
questions about that. Personal questions. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But what I really
Okay.
love about some of the things that you just said was, and it related to my story too, is it's about that expectation, like letting go of that expectation of, this has got to be great, this has got to be the thing, right? And instead, what I heard you saying was just being more curious. Like, if I like to do this type of art before, why am I not doing this today? And again, this can go anything. This could be digital design, it could be gardening, it could be whatever you're creative or passionate about, right? Now, Sharon does work specifically with artist types. And I want everybody to hear that this is about anything. If computer programming really does your ditty, then, going into figuring out how can you be more creative with it? How can you create whatever? Correct? Yeah. Share
Yeah,
that
fill in the blank.
information.
I can talk about it from an artistic point of view or a creative point of view, but just fill in the blank with whatever it is that you're interested in. I think one of the things well, I will say this, the first thing that I recommend is that curiosity,
Mm,
to allow yourself to be open and curious. If there is something on television that you see and you're like, I always wanted to try that. One of the things that I said to myself, I think, if not the latter part of this year, I got to finish the book and a few other things, but I think next year I want to learn how to play the bongos or the
mm,
tambourines. I don't know if I'm
mhm,
pronouncing that right. I just have this thing about drumming and even just playing the drums, but I was like, I just think that is such a cool instrument. Something that is sort of what is it, percussion. Now,
mhm,
I've never played an instrument in high school or anything, but that is just one of those things that's just been kind of playing in my head. Um, but I think you should open yourself to curiosity. Open yourself to, what is it that I've always thought was interesting? Even if it's something on television that you see, or on something like a documentary, a video, something, whatever, even if you're in the park and you see somebody doing something interesting. If it really stays in your mind, that may be a clue. It's
mm,
something you want to try. And so go with your curiosity. Don't get honed in on one thing. If it's several things that you're interested in, try those several things. Some people feel like, well, in order to be creative, I have to just be a visual artist, or I have to
mm,
be a musician, and I have to be a poet, and I can't try other things. No, try it all. One thing about this younger generation, they do that. Um,
mm,
I've always naturally did it. I started out with visual art, and then went into poetry a few years ago.
mm,
Um, and sometimes, as part of your curiosity, as part of your discovery process, life will kind of move you to a different place where you try something as a way of self-expression. So look at your life experiences. What are some life experiences that may serve as a muse for you to try something new?
mm,
Even if it's not the greatest experience. One of the things that happened to me, I went through a life lesson that was pretty major. And it sort of moved me to a place of healing in a part of my life. The person that was involved with it ended up serving as a muse for me to write the poetry. Now, I wrote poetry and stuff as a teenager, preteen, as a
mm,
teenager, but I hadn't really thought about it for years, because I was doing my little visual art thing. And here I am writing poems and these different prose as a way of healing from this situation. And I
mm,
ended up having enough poems to do a little chapbook and get it out to some folks and start doing open mics. It led to a whole different creative thing.
mm,
So don't box yourself by saying, okay, if I took a class in making jewelry, that's my creative thing. You may enjoy it, but keep yourself open to whatever else you're curious about. You may find that you might just focus just on jewelry after a while, or you may find yourself just being an open, creative person who enjoys doing a variety of different things. And there's no right or wrong. It's just giving yourself permission to
mm,
try and
mm,
to fulfill your desires, because let's face it, you're going to have more time, you have more, maybe a little more money to take classes, and you're going to really find the joy and the comfort and the calmness, and even, I dare say, the meditative quality of spending time creating something that's really fun, or in or um, doing whatever it is that you're passionate about.
That's so this multi-passionate I really love. And what I love about it is that you can take these classes that you were talking about and not have to buy all the supplies, because that used to be really intimidating for me. It was like, oh, if I want to go learn this thing, like even stand-up paddleboard, like I don't want to go buy a paddleboard until I know that I'm actually going to like it, right? So we can go out to these different classes. At least there's a place around here where you can rent one, and they'll even teach you how to use it. So you can go to classes and use all of those supplies, which I think is so important, and try the different things. When I tried glass bead making, it transferred into my art, into the art that I already make, where I was like, ooh, I really like those colors together. And ooh, I really like that shape. And so all of the different things, like, it's not like you're starting over, you're taking skills with you and different creativity and stuff. So I really love that. And then I wanted to just touch on, because I am kind of a geek, so I look up the studies. What does science say about this? And Harvard Business Review is telling me that being more interested, having a creativity or passion that you're doing outside of work can reduce your stress. It increases our creativity and our brain activity. It also can offer higher energy, which it makes so much sense to me, because if I'm really excited about something in that zone that you were talking about before, I can get into a creativity zone, and it's like energy means nothing to me. I don't even think about napping or doing something else. I just get into that zone. So that space is really, really good for us as human beings.
I agree. And I think in addition to the curiosity that we talked about, which I do advocate for people to do, I think the other thing is to look at these endeavors and find the easiest way that you feel that you can enter, like workshops, like those types of things. It also could mean friends. A lot of us have creative friends or people that are involved with hobbies that we're interested in. And it's just a matter of, if you got good friends, you can ask them and say, I want to try this, or I want to try that. Do you think you can teach me, or can you guide me to someone that could help me? Some people do well in a class with other people, and I recommend it because it's a bunch of folks trying to learn the same thing. It's a networking tool. It can serve as a support community. But sometimes you may want to do things one-to-one. Maybe you might feel a little intimidated being in a class with a bunch of people. So, find someone that might be able to tutor you, or better yet, do something virtual where you may not be in a classroom per se, where someone's looking over your shoulder, or you think somebody is doing that and looking at your work. You could do something online. I think the other thing, which we talked about earlier today before we got online, was the whole thing about perfectionism, and also the part about capitalistic kinds of endeavors. A lot of people force folks or push people to use their hobby as a money-making thing. Now, my thing is this: if this is part of your purpose and your plan for your life after retirement or a side gig, go for it. Set up your Etsy shop, set up whatever you need to do to sell what it is that you like doing. But don't feel that you have to go into any of these passions to make money. Doing it just to do it is just as important and helpful and all that stuff as deciding that you want to make money out of it. Be clear about what your purpose is, and know that it does not always have to end up being a capitalistic thing, because sometimes it takes the joy out of it. If you feel that I got to make X amount of widgets to sell and all that, and if that's not you, don't do it for that. If you want to write poetry for the sake of poetry, putting together your own little chapbook and give it to friends like I did, you don't have to do this publishing thing. You don't even have to share it at an open mic if you don't want to. I encourage people, if they feel that they want to get feedback and to really test their courage, get out there. But if that's not you, that's okay. It doesn't make it any less or less valid or not important. It's all about you. And I think the last thing I did want to mention is, well, two things. One is imposter syndrome and your inner critic, because those will derail you from doing a passion or a hobby. I didn't go to art school. I didn't learn music. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't this, I wasn't that, or I'm not that. That doesn't matter. We all can do what it is that we would like to do. Now, if you cannot sing and you cannot sing, nobody's saying for you to push that. But if there's something else related to music that is a passion of yours that you can really get the same joy, do that. But don't feel that you have to have all this education and knowledge. Hobbies and passions are about where our heart is. It can be a part of our purpose. And there's nothing wrong with going back to school if you feel that that's your path. But don't feel that you have to have all these things lined up, that you have to have been an English major to write that book or anything like that. If you have a book inside you, I think the popular quote, I think it was either Toni Morrison or Maya Angelou, one of my two shearers. You have to get that book out. There's plenty of people that can help you, creativity coaches, different people that can help you. So move past that and find a way to change those inner dialogues into something positive. For example, I'm big on affirmations. Sometimes I have to write affirmations to negate anything that's going on up here. So I'll write an affirmation that I am a talented and sought after artist, if that's the reality I want to manifest. It's just one way to kind of rewire your thinking and some of the negative biases, which we all naturally have, to move you to a direction to pursue whatever your passion is. And I think the other thing, and you kind of touched on it with your friend, making sure that you have people around you that understand that you want to try these things. There's always going to be somebody saying, why do you want to do that? Aren't you a little old to be doing that? No, you're never too old to try something new. And, if it means that that side of you may have to just dim a little bit around them, so be it, if that person's important to you. But you want to keep people that are positive about what you're trying, maybe want to try it with you, invite them to try something with you. There's always going to be people who are not comfortable moving outside their comfort zone. And that's okay, but it doesn't mean that you have to stay there. It means that you make the decision for you, not for other people, not for the naysayers, not for the haters or the people who are not comfortable with themselves to try something new. This is about you. And even if people say, oh, your stuff is crap. I had somebody tell me my poetry was like, it just doesn't go anywhere. And it was somebody that I really felt very close to. And I was just very hurt that he said that. But I also knew that that was not necessarily my reality when I have shared it with other people, including folks that are in the field that critique those types of things. So, put people in their, where they are. If it's just a layperson who doesn't read or listen to poetry, that's not who you want to hear from. You want to hear from people that really know what they're doing and that are compassionate and supportive. And if you can't find someone compassionate and supportive, or you're dealing with someone that way, find someone else, because there is always someone, whether it's a creativity coach, whether it's an instructor, whether whoever, there's always someone that's going to support your dreams and your passions. So don't get caught up with people that are going to be negative and belittle your passions. We all have them, and we have the right. We're grown adults now. We're not teenagers where we were kind of sidelined onto certain things. We can make these decisions. We can make the time. And speaking of time, I'm trying to get it all in today. Making sure that the people told know that this is something that's important to you. If you need to carve out a little art studio, or if you need to, on Thursday nights, that's your writing group night or class night or whatever, let people know, hey, I'm looking to do these things now. I just want to let you know I'm not going to be around on Thursday nights between 6 and 8 because this is what I'm doing. Let your family, your significant other, in on it. Let them know what you're going to be doing. And, you don't have to keep them in the dark about it. But let them know that this is special to you and that this is the time for you. And for the most part, people will support that, I find. You know, just know that I think the final thing I can say about pursuing your passion, I think we should see creativity or whatever our passion is as a way of self-care. And I think a lot of people think of self-care and all that as, going to yoga and massages and all those types of things, which they are. But when you pursue something that's inside that gives you joy, that's self-care. And you should do what you can to support that, as if you were getting the massage, if you were, doing some kind of spa treatment or whatever. That my time to create is part of my self-care. That keeps me sane.
Yeah, too.
And so see it as that, and sometimes even if you have to explain it to people who don't understand, this is a part of my self-care. This is how I relax. This is something I choose to do to stay sane in this crazy world. And, that's a different lens, but I really push for people to see it that way because, there's so many things that people try to tell you not to do. But this is one thing you can be selfish about.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
I give you permission to do it.
All right. Well, Sharon said so. So y'all go out there and create time. And I do have clients who come in like, well, and they're not quite empty nesters, or maybe they're not planning on retiring. Maybe their career's still in heavy flow. And it's like, they're like, oh, I don't have time. And I hear this a lot about a lot of different things from my clients. And I'm like, really? I want you to track your time for a week, right? Just track it for a week and see how much time you spend scrolling on Facebook, playing games on your phone, doing things that aren't feeding your soul the same way that creativity or something that you'd be passionate about would do. And, you can really find blocks of time where you have time to do this. So I have this client that has this creative business, and the whole reason she went into business for herself was to be creative, right? But then what happened was the business took over, and now she's like, oh, well, this has to get done, that has to get done. And then she's like, I don't even have time for creativity anymore. And so one thing that I encouraged her to do was, before you start your work day, do something creative, whether that's she builds little widgets and stuff. Like, so build your widget or get creative with a widget ahead of time, like explore, be curious, as your points were, and just give yourself that permission to, F it up if that's what you want. Like, this isn't about whether you're failing or you're succeeding. This is about just being creative and doing the dang thing. Because I mean, how many sketches of the human man did Da Vinci have to do before he started painting big cathedrals or starting that big project, right? Like, there was that's learning. So my affirmation is always like, I'm learning and I'm curious. I'm learning.
There you go. I'm really curious. And let me just say a note about perfectionism. It's not about being perfect. It's not about running out the gate and looking like somebody on television or on social media or whatever. And by the way, do not compare yourself to people on social media, whether they're musicians, whether it looks like they're successful in a business or whatever. You don't know the backstory, number one. You don't know how long they've been doing it. Some people have had the luxury of being able to, let's say, be an artist all their lives and were able to, don't do it. If you want to get ideals and get inspired, that's fine. But don't get caught up with, oh, I can't do stuff that looks like that. Or when I posted my music or my poetry, I didn't get as many likes as this person. That just erase all of that. It's about you. It's about being the best that you can be, not based on what you feel success is. And, I really am glad to see that people are talking more now about what is success and everything else. And I had to really redo that myself. What society says it is.
My bank
Success
account.
is really about, yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying that having a good bank account is not something to strive for,
Sure.
but I also know that for me, success is having peace of mind, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so if pursuing my path is giving me peace of mind, that's success for me. Whether I'm selling anything, whether I have 100,000 likes based on a post I made of whatever it is, the success is being able to be proud of what I've done and feeling good about what I've done and feeling good in my mind and being in my right mind and to be at peace in a world that is not at peace right now. So
Mm-hmm.
if I could have a little bit of fantasy and a little bit of fun and play as part of my passions and pursuing that despite what the world says I'm supposed to be showing up as, that is the peace that we all should strive for.
I'm
And
writing this.
that's why we pursue
Yeah,
passions.
I'm writing down this little saying. So what I'm hearing is experience over expectation. Because for me, when I create expectations of my art, like I'm copying something that this person is teaching me how to do on this YouTube video, and all of a sudden my lines don't look as, strong as hers, or, as even as hers, or whatever. So instead of having these huge expectations, what I really love about art for me is that it can still become anything. And I can change my mind in the middle of it and go, you know what? Actually, I'm coloring over all that orange with some blue. I don't like it. And that's the joy of creativity. So it's more about the experience, right? Like I love that you and I are on that same page where it's like getting in that zone of our creativity is so fun. Like when I can get my whole brain and body and inner wisdom like focused on this one thing without my brain going, but we should be doing this, or we could be doing that, or we could get that laundry off the line and blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, my brain can go crazy that way, but that's why I really love that you also incorporate that yoga nidra, because that is the space. And I'll put a link below of the yoga nidra from the Midlife Mojo Summit so that
Yes, definitely. That would be a great
people
idea.
get
Yeah.
hooked up with that, so that they can try it, because it's like it just kind of, for me, it gets me out of my head and back into my body where my creativity actually is. So instead of thinking about the past, thinking about my to-dos and all the future stuff and preparing, I'm like really present with my art and my creativity.
And
So
that's
yeah.
the best way to be. I think when we think about different things, sometimes we forget it's the experience and how we want to feel that
Mm-hmm.
drives us to do the things that we do. And if
Look
we
at my
keep that
language.
in mind, yeah, and being present, the yoga nidra is one of those things that's about being present.
Mm-hmm.
Creativity, if that's what you want to do, whatever your passion is, it's really about the experience, not necessarily accomplishments, not necessarily all of that will come if that's something you really want. But just remember it's the feeling, the experience and allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to do those things to get that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a healthy way of self-expression. And I think people at midlife especially really can find the time, can make the time, as you mentioned. All of us are on social media way too much, and a lot of that time can be cut to be able to do what you really want to try to do. So,
Yeah, I love that so much. One of the things I've learned to do is when I find myself just scrolling, I'm like, hold on, Christina, what could I be doing? And I'll turn on YouTube and like I'll explore new creative stuff to do. Like, oh, how did she make that? And then I'll watch the videos of how they made it. And I may or may not ever do that craft, but it keeps me excited to go try new things to, oh, well, I see what she's doing there. I wonder how I could adopt that to what it is that I do. And so that is even creative time. So even for me, when I'm procrastinating on something, because when I get to the hard part of a project, then I'm like, it takes me weeks to get back to it. I just start watching videos every day because I'm like, at least I'll get excited about it, right? Like that's what I'm trying to inspire myself to be like, oh, right, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I want to see this through. And then that becomes much different than I have to get this done, which is, I feel like where so many of us live. And I don't want my creativity to live there where I have to get this done. I almost take this spot where I'm going to start this. I have no idea if this will ever get done.
absolutely. I think that really, not only, like you said about the videos, but also try to find ways to get out and see things to help
Mm.
inspire you. For
Oh,
example, Julia Cameron in the book The Artist's Way, if you're not familiar with it, I suggest everybody go get that book because it's about creative recovery and rediscovering your creativity. And
mhm.
it's two things she talks about is artist dates and morning pages. Morning pages is journaling, like 3 pages of longhand stream of consciousness writing every morning. And that enables you to open your mind to new things for the day. So you can kind of incorporate them into your life. The second thing is artist dates. And I love artist dates because they enable you to go out, take yourself on a solo date and actually find some things that inspire you, whether it's at a museum or an art gallery, whether it's going to the park, whether it's going to a concert by yourself, a movie by yourself,
Mm.
whatever it is. But those are designed for you to take in new information that may inform your creative practice, your passion, whatever. So instead of scrolling, and instead of sitting in front of the television, get out, and see some things that inspire you, but go by yourself. Sometimes when we go
Mm.
with people, we get distracted. People bring up stuff that really has nothing to do with us or, bias what we're seeing. You
Mm.
want to trust your eye. You want to trust your ear. You want to be inspired by what it is that you see, not by what someone tells you they're seeing or how
Yeah.
they feel about it or whatever. So,
And then you have to go at their
yeah,
pace instead of your own pace. So if I don't like
yeah,
this
and this
wing,
is
I can go
about
to a
you.
different wing. Yeah. Yeah, I love that so
Again,
much. What a great idea.
yeah, again, this is about self-care. You
Mhm.
know, pursuing hobbies and passions is about self-care, and when we see it that way and see that things that we do in support of that as an extension of self-care, it really takes on a whole different meaning.
And what I
So,
loved, one more point I'm going to make, and then we should probably wrap up because I know that we can go for hours and hours. But what I loved about earlier was when you said, if a friend of yours does something that you were like, "Ooh, I'd like to learn how to do that," go ask them. I don't have one artist friend where I've ever been like, "Hey, could you teach me how to do that?" And they were like, "No." Me personally, I think people who create things, they want to share it with other people. They want to share the techniques. They want to share, I mean, people who are really passionate about it, they love it when you're like, yes, I would love to show you that. And it really gives them an opportunity to serve within their craft, which I think is just, how lovely is that? What a compliment that is that you think I do great stuff and you want to learn how to do it. I think it's so
mhm.
fantastic. And so go ask somebody. I'm sure you know someone who does something creative. If you don't know where to start, that might be a great place to start of just asking your friends, what do they do for creativity? Can they share that with you? we used to have, when I lived back east, we used to have get-togethers where like everybody brought their own art and shared how they do it with other people. And then they either learned from each other or we just did our own art projects together. But it was very supportive, to your point about needing support. It's so helpful. Plus, I'm watching what they're doing, and that's inspiring me and motivating me to want to do more of my own work, even on my own. So all of these are little steps that you can take, right? We don't have to imagine the whole painting done, but I can get support. I can ask for, guidance from people. I can go start watching those videos or taking myself out on a date to get inspired. So there are things that we can start doing, even if we don't know what exactly we want to do. That's all stuff I clued in from this conversation.
That's right.
Any huge highlights that you want to just bring up where we go to remind anybody?
Just, yes, tune into your curiosity, follow it, give
Curiosity.
yourself permission,
Mm.
try some things, and don't box yourself into just one thing. Try whatever it is that you're interested in. Rewire any thoughts that says you can't do it or it's too late or you're not talented or whatever. Don't even give in to that.
Hogwash.
Don't compare yourself, and make sure that you're surrounded by somebody or somebodies that are supportive of what you're doing. And, just be open to the process, and that, you're not going to be perfect. It's all about trying and experimenting and being a beginner. I know as midlife and older adults, we're used to being the professionals in whatever it is we've done all our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Just kick that out the window. You're being a beginner, and it's okay to be a beginner. It's actually refreshing. And be open to that process.
And it's part of the journey. I know when I have accomplished things, like when I graduated college, I looked back and I was like, wow, did I like really enjoy the journey as I was going rather than like feeling like I had to rush so I can graduate, So sometimes when we're done with the journey, we miss being that newbie. We miss experiencing those things for the first time and like learning techniques. And so it's all part of the journey. My affirmation, I'm learning and I'm curious. So,
and I'm curious. I love that affirmation. And that can go through so many things. But yeah, be willing to be a beginner again. And I mean, let's face it, a lot of us are sages in our workplace and everybody goes to us for things. You can be the novice and you can rely on going to somebody else to be shown the way. You don't have to have that badge on you, and it's okay. And no one's going to think of you as anything but someone who's open to learning. And that's what life is about. And it does support healthy aging.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. It keeps our brains busy, our hearts excited, like all of the parts of us can get really into it. So thank you so much for sharing your passion about passion.
Oh, you're welcome.
I appreciate you.
Subjects.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much. So if you are tuning in and you're like, I'm going to go try something new, hit the comments up and let us know, what are you going to be trying? We want to get excited with you. We want to be inspired and motivated right along your side. So share it with us. We'd love to hear about it. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, Sharon. I appreciate you. I know that you love the subject and you're the first person I thought of. I was like, oh, Sharon's going to want to talk about this. I knew it.
I just want to say thank you. I'm very grateful and thankful that you thought of me. And, I look forward to seeing what people have to say. And, I invite people to check me out too if you need some help with
all of our links are below.
So I look forward to hearing from you. No problem. Thank you, Christina.
Yeah, but all of our links are below. So if you are having these creative blocks and you just really want to start pursuing more passion and more creativity, Sharon is your woman to go to. So go check out her links, make sure that you get on her list and you get all of her juicy information, and follow her socials. Thank you, shifters, for tuning in. We'll see you again next week. Bye. Are you tuned in and you're like, I wish I had a group of women that I could have these conversations with so I could hear their real lives, how they're experiencing these challenges, how they're getting to the celebrations, how they're building a journey that is more joyful and confident? Well, I got you. I have created a community called the Modern Midlife Mentorship, where we have a modern perspective over what aging and what we look like aging looks like today. It doesn't have to be sitting in a rocking chair. In fact, there are so many women out there doing so many amazing things, as you can hear with my guests on the podcast. But in this modern midlife mentorship, we're going to bring a community together to rethink about what midlife can be like, really dive deep into the topics that are impacting us, like our health, our emotions, our mental health, our relationships, and that big piece of what do I want next for myself. So if you are interested in being in a community, making more connections with women in midlife, and getting all the tools you need to really move through the challenges and get to those celebrations, then I want you to click the button below for the Modern Midlife Mentorship. Learn more, reach out if you have any questions, and I would love to see you there. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed the episode and that you were able to get something out of it. If that's true, then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, every week this season, I am going to be releasing more. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment. It all really helps us get seen by more women so that we can really revolutionize how we see aging and how we see ourselves while we're aging, so that we can age more joyfully and confidently. I hope you're gentle with your humanness, especially in midlife. Bye.